It is time to look at your wallet now. Now, how is your money behaving? Or are you in an untamed spending spree? Well, I can guess, we can say that about Kenyan's electoral process, just after gulping 49 billion shillings in the August 8th general election, the IEBC now needs another 12 billion shillings to conduct the October 17th repeat presidential election. Not to mention that the economy has been on a slow, if not decline growth, even before the general election. To help us with the state of the economy is Corporate Finance Manager at ABC Capital, Johnson Derry. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's start with what maybe Wananchi would really be concerned about. And we have figures that are thrown out there, 12 billion, how many billions that the government spends. But what does that mean for me at the end of the day?
Well, ultimately, those numbers will be paid for by us as citizenry, general citizenry, either through taxes or deferred taxes, because when they borrow, we'll still have to pay at some point. So either way, we're going to have to pay for it.
We'll have to pay for it. Now, when that 12 billion that is required now is used by the IEBC, don't we benefit as the economy because that money is in circulation somewhere?
Yeah, but that means that a sector that will have been more productive with the resources then will miss out. And that means obviously slower growth, because now you're talking about consumption versus investment. So for tomorrow's growth, we need to invest today. So if we take that money out from tomorrow's growth and we consume it today, tomorrow we shall sleep hungry.
We'll sleep hungry. So is there cause for concern then, given that we've been in an election mode pretty much throughout the year? I mean, when we were waiting for the August elections, right from about February, business was kind of slowing down with investors not too sure what's going to happen after August 8th. Then we got to August 8th. There seemed to be a bit of reprieve after, things calmed down. But then again, when the Supreme Court ruled, we've gone back to the same mode. Should we be worried?
Yes, we should be worried. I'm not too sure whether we should attribute everything to the electioneering cycle. If you look at Stanbic Bank Kenya's PMI, Purchasing Manager Index, with Marketer, there's been a slowdown of private sector, private sector activity, which either tells you, A, they're either holding, waiting for the elections to end, or they're being squeezed out by a much bigger force that started much earlier, or you could be talking about the interest rate cap. So all these three issues will have contributed to that slowdown. And of course, that number is also mirrored by expansion of lending in the banking sector, which obviously, has been, since the beginning of this year, pointed out by the central bank governor. So those are indicators that all is not well.
Okay. Now, as we drag the electioneering period longer, how does that affect us, especially now when it comes to our daily spending and the economy generally in the country? How does that affect us on, and by affect here, I mean when you go to the supermarket, what am I likely to face?
All right. I think the two or three issues. I did point out the interest rate cap that needs to be somehow resolved. It's clearly slowing down everything, and only Parliament is best placed to resolve that. But if you don't have a president to sign the law into,
the bill into law,
yeah, and an executive to push the idea, then we have to.
It remains.
Yes. The other issue we have is, of course, procurement. A lot of government suppliers, I think, have not been paid, and that's having an impact, because that money needs to go back to the banking sector, because that money does not belong to the banks. I think the other issue is, and this is the big one, investment and lending issues, because at this point, a lot of credit committees are unwilling to lend, because should anything go wrong,
the uncertainty that is there.
How do they explain to their bosses why they lent? when they knew things, I mean, the probability of being, yes. So all this plays out into a general slowdown, which is not healthy for us.
Okay, sometimes this sounds very, it's like more the huge corporates, the blue chip companies that possibly would suffer this. Do SMEs also suffer the same issues?
They're probably the worst hit because especially the established corporates, if you ignore the Nakumats of this world, have very healthy balance sheets and probably could ride this out, or they have got the the relationships with financial institutions to ride this out,
where they can get credit.
Yes, it is the SMEs that are struggling because those are the ones that you shopped around for a bank. It was the last bank that you went to that actually had your story and they were willing to support you, but at this point they really can't. For two reasons, uncertain the election and the interest rate cap. So that is, and SMEs are where the most growth comes from, and also SMEs are where most employment comes from. So there are a lot of people quietly laying off people, a lot of SMEs quietly shutting down. Yes, and this is not good for us, of course.
Okay. Now, how can one buffer themselves from this? Because there's no way of telling what's going to happen, first of all, after the election. Secondly, it could still be dragged on. I mean, it is an option that whoever loses could still go to the Supreme Court, and that just delays things. Depending on what the Supreme Court rules, again, another delay comes in. So how does one buffer himself, especially if you're an SME operator or CEO, or looking at getting into business?
Well, it all comes down to strategy. You have to analyze and understand the environment in which you're operating in. And if you're operating in a very unstable environment where, access to credit can be an issue or sales can be an issue for a short while, then you need to align your balance sheet accordingly. What does that mean? That means you probably need less debt and more equity. So you need to secure funding. You may not need it. It may appear that you don't need it right now, but you might want to get some buffer financing from maybe friends or other investors who are willing to listen to your story. Now, it's important that you do this early because the longer you wait, the more, when you're in trouble, it's very difficult to secure funding. This is the time when people, are willing to listen to your story if you're doing well. And there are a lot of investors out there who are actually looking for investments. They may or may not invest immediately, but it's a good idea to start the discussion early because it usually takes quite a bit of time. So basically what I'm saying is just show up your balance sheet, build your equity up so that you can ride any storms that may be coming in the future.
Okay. Now, there's a famous saying that one man's meat is another man's poison. There are probably industries or sectors that even when this is happening, this is the time that they make money. Are there sectors like those, and possibly how does one get into them?
Well, of course there are. I'm sure the lawyers are smiling.
Yes, lawyers are definitely smiling to the bank. But not all lawyers. Again, it's a good number.
You're right. The ones who are supporting the SMEs are probably struggling.
Yeah, precisely.
If you want to buy into a business, we have a saying in investments where you buy cheap and sell expensive. This is the time to buy cheap. And that goes both for the stock market and for existing businesses.
But that would require somebody who's liquid, fairly liquid right now.
Of course. I mean, obviously, if you're looking to invest, then that, by definition, that means you're liquid. Yeah. Well, so those are the opportunities. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities available. I know that because we encounter this on a day-to-day basis. Entrepreneurs are looking to raise money either for expansion or for to stabilize themselves, and you get in at this point and you get it pretty cheap.
So what are some of the areas that one would invest in at this point in time? I know, for instance, real estate right now would be at an all-time low because not much money is doing rounds.
Yes, and for two reasons. Real estate has been affected by the interest rate cap. So both from the constructor's perspective and also from uptake perspective. And you know, nobody starts building when the exit is not very clear.
Right.
So I will hold on a bit on that. Unless I've got a good location. Good locations
Can still sell.
Yes. I think fast moving consumer goods could be interesting. The retail space also is interesting, especially now that Nakumatt is sitting ground, that can offer opportunity for others to step in. There are a bit of manufacturing here and there with the plastic bag ban. There are other
opportunities that could come out of that.
Exactly.
Would it be too late for somebody to be investing in that? Because given that this, of course, is not something that's happened overnight, beginning to invest in that now might be deemed as though you're coming in late.
Well, if I pick my own experiences, right now shopping is hell.
Absolutely.
We need somebody to come up with a solution quickly.
For that gap.
Yes. So there exists an opportunity somewhere. I honestly don't know what it is, but I think maybe it's deliveries. I don't know, but there's an opportunity. Definitely.
Is there a special knack that somebody needs to have to just identify those opportunities? I mean, there are many of us who are probably complaining that now that there are no plastic bags, what am I going to use? Yet there's somebody sitting somewhere and thinking, well, this is my opportunity now to ensure that I get into the business world.
I remember I had a debate yesterday on Twitter, and it was about entrepreneurship. And for me, I think entrepreneurship is an iterative process. For every successful entrepreneur, there are numbers who failed. So I mean, I think it's an issue of trial and error. You try. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, you move on to the next thing.
The next thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, for those who are employed, because we've mainly concentrated on businesses, for those who are employed, what do we need to be doing now, given that this period could see prices of foodstuffs going up, pump prices could go up, yet our salaries are very unlikely to go up?
That's a tough one. Well,
it's reality.
Yes, I mean, and that's why we always say save, because when you save and I'm assuming when you save, you invest. When you save and invest, then you're able to build up your income over time, and such things then now become, you know, this is the rainy days we always talk about when you say save and invest for a rainy day. These are the rainy days we're talking about. So if you haven't started, I think there's never a wrong time to start. Just start saving, start investing, build up your auxiliary income, and that way at least you become less and less dependent on your salary, and again you're able to keep up with inflation.
Okay. And would you say, from your experience and advice, being a financial person, not political, I'm so used to politics, being somebody who's in finances, is saving, is it a mentality thing, or is it about how much income you have? Because you'll find that regardless of how much you earn, there are people who save, there are others who just cannot seem to save.
For some, it's a cultural thing. For others, it's an income thing. I mean, we know of those friends of ours who love to live large, spend beyond their means. Of course, for those, that's a habit. It's a bad habit, and we all know genuinely some people who, you know, for whatever reason, I mean, their income just barely covers their living expenses, and of course, the cost of income doesn't help the situation. So I mean, cost of living. So for those who can help it, you know, it's smart to you know, look at your general situation, and look for alternatives to doing what you do. You know, leisure usually is a big consumer of our you know, incomes. So yeah, that's why we all start. Just look at your lifestyle and see what can be changed, and then you fit in accordingly. Because nobody will come out there to work for you. You know, it has to be yourself.
It has
Otherwise,
to be internal drive.
Yes, yes. I hear the French say that development is a door that can only be opened from the inside.
Right.
So it's only you can sort yourself out. For those who are waiting for the politicians to come and, you know, save them from their situations, it's never going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
No.
All right, and maybe just advise, are there specific percentages? Because, I mean, we're talking to an audience who earn, you know, very different sums of amounts. Are there percentages that you would recommend if you're saving? This should be the percentage of your salary that should go to your income, I mean, to your rent, for instance, to your recurrent expenditure, and this has to be towards saving.
Not really. I just say do what you can, you know, push yourself. This the very same way, you know, your physical exercise, you know, guy will be telling you it's really about you, what you can do. The more you save, the more you invest. The more you invest, the more money you can make. So it just comes down to that. Now, if you want to save 10%, that's what will go up towards uplifting your, you know, income in the future. And you don't really have a lot of time. Think about it. If you are 40 years old today, and the average, you know, life expectancy is about 55, so you've got about 15 years. 15 years, there are 12 months in a year, so you've got 15 times 12 months. Those are the number of salaries you're going to have until...
Assuming you don't lose your job. Hoping you don't lose your job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like I always say, you don't really have too much time. Just do what you can right now. Do what you can right now, because the more you do, the better for you.
Okay. Basically, what we should anticipate maybe now, as we're winding up, what we should anticipate between now and when the elections are over, because given we're going to go to the elections on the 17th, is there likely to be business looking up, even if a president was sworn in 7 days after that? Or are we expecting the economy probably to be at a lull until possibly next year?
Well, if I'm to pick the Nairobi Securities Exchange as my proxy indicator, when the Supreme Court decision was announced, you had a mini crash in the Securities Exchange. Remember, it had to be suspended, but prices are not where they were before at least not for all counters, not where they were before the announcement, but they have somewhat recovered. Yes, so that tells you, you know, yes, I mean, there's quite a bit in the economy that depends on government, you know, processes and things like and political processes, but there's also a part of it. I mean, Kenya is a fairly diverse economy. We have some built-in resilience over time. We're not having power blackouts. So, I mean, there are a couple of positive things out there worth mentioning. And I think coming back to the Nairobi Securities Exchange, if that has recovered, then I think what investors are seeing is that it's not all gloom and doom. There's still opportunity out there. And therefore, let's,
All right, we need to wind up. Possibly your closing thoughts or comments, just general advice to Kenyans as we wait now for this political atmosphere to change.
I think people just need to, you know, get themselves more involved in politics. And I'm not talking about voting. I'm talking about from a policy perspective, because I think that's where, you know, our primary weakness is. Surely we can't have two parties running with identical ideologies. I mean, surely that tells me nobody's thinking. So I think people ought to be, you know, I mean, see those who can see things differently, I think need to step up to the plate
And have diversity.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much, Johnson Derry, who's a corporate finance manager at ABC Capital. Thank you for joining us this morning and basically just giving us advice on finances and the economy as we wait for the presidential election of the 17th, and possibly what to anticipate and what you should expect and how you should expect your wallet to be.